This video is over the chapter in Intro to CPT on urinary and male genital systems. So if you want to open up your textbook and get to the spot, we can get started. The urinary system subsection of the CPT manual, it states, is arranged anatomically by the subheadings. They start with kidneys, then ureters, bladders, urethras, and then within those subheadings, then they're arranged by procedure. So within the kidney, we have incision, excision, introduction, and repair. Within the ureter, we have incision, excision, introduction, and repair. See what I mean? A wide range of terminology is used in this area. Again, the longer you take right now to look up words, look up procedures, make sure you understand what we're doing, the better it'll be for you in the long run. So starting in the kidney and then starting in incision, there's good reading for you there. Some bold terms, you know, that you can kind of pay attention to. Those are very good. I don't think we need to go through all of this as in depth. These few chapters are pretty simple. On top of the next page, there's a paragraph that says, if your procedure begins as an exploratory procedure, but then becomes definitive or corrective, like repair of a lacerated kidney, only that definitive procedure is reported. The exploration is considered to be diagnostic, and it's bundled into that surgical, okay? If they're both done at the same operative session. So again, if they're both done at the same time for the same reason, again, it's like crossing the horses in the midstream, okay? We've talked about this before. If it starts as diagnostic and then ends up turning surgical, we know that we just bill that surgical. Really carefully, you know, some of these bold terms on this page: nephrostomy, nephrotomy, nephrolithotomy. I kind of have a note here to myself is really watch your word parts, okay? You need to really, really make sure you're watching your word parts, and we really use a lot of that medical terminology here because these words are very closely related, just a little bit differently spelled. So, you know, you go to the wrong area and start at the wrong area in the back of that index, okay, in the back of your CPT book, you have a completely wrong code, okay, which is going to be a completely wrong charge. Okay, which is going to, you know, cause a lot of issues, that one little ripple that then turns into a wave. So really make sure you take time and are going through this very slow. Within that kidney, they talk about kidney stones, of course. At the bottom of the page, they have an image there for us, and they talk about ESWL, extracorporeal shockwave lithotripsy. And you will see in your... see on my screen here if I can get this moved. Here we go. You'll see a couple of videos here. This is the ESWL video that I have in here from YouTube. It's one that I used to show in class when we had class together. And it's a really, really good video. Actually, I think I wrote down it's like 4 minutes and 30 or 4:31. So not very long, but it is very, very good. You will see in that video and notice so that they use the fluoroscopy. You can see, you know, they're using the screen to know that they're in the right spot. Fluoroscopy would be coded separately in that instance, along with that ESWL. So you can read about it there, and then it's really good to take a moment and watch that video about it. There are, of course, other methods, you know, that we can use when we have kidney stones, but that is one of them. Under excision, still in the kidney, they talk about nephrectomy, ablation. There are a couple of good videos out there too. I didn't link them. They're ones that you can, you know, if you have time, go out there and look for. Renal transplantation, and I really want to take a second here. In the CPT book, if you want to pause me and get your CPT book, I have written page 358. Page 358 in your CPT book. I have this open for us already, is where they talk about renal transplantation, and that's where we're at in the chapter too. I like the way they have it set up here in your CPT book. When you get there and you notice they have three distinct components, okay, of physician work, and they have them numbered out here. Number 1, it talks about cadaver donor nephrectomy, whether it's unilateral or bilateral, and they talk about the living donor nephrectomy, and so reading that paragraph is going to be really good for you to understand. They use this term that I don't think we've heard of before, backbench work. That number 2 is backbench work. Reading backbench work and those 3 small paragraphs there is going to be good for you, because you'll see across the page we've got some codes there, 503, 23, 25, 27, that go on about the backbench work. Okay, so make sure you understand that. And then also then number 3 is the recipient renal allotransplantation. So that's it includes the transplantation of that allograft and the care of the recipient, that person that received the kidney. So we talk about the donor, okay, and their care. We talk about the backbench work, and then we talk about the recipient. So reading those out and looking at those differences is going to be important for you. At the top of that next page in your textbook now, I kind of shut the CPT book and put that away. It says, if backbench procedures were performed, those services would be reported in addition to the transplant service. And then, of course, we got to add that modifier 51 to indicate multiple procedures were done. Introduction is kind of interesting. Underneath that purple quick check, I always take a moment to kind of read this. There's a paragraph that says, approximately half of the population over age 50 has renal cysts that are asymptomatic. Remember from MedTerm, A or AN means no, not, or without, so there are no symptoms, okay, if you're asymptomatic. They're often only discovered as an incidental finding on ultrasound or maybe CT. When these cysts are symptomatic, percutaneous aspiration or injection might be performed for them. The procedure is performed by the use of a local anesthetic, and then it's outpatient. A sclerosing agent like alcohol may be injected into that cyst. There's a code, okay, the code description for 50390 indicates aspiration and or injection. We had that with musculoskeletal and into the joints, right? So that's an interesting paragraph. You know, we all might have renal cysts. We just don't know them because we don't have any issues with them yet. Kidney index locations. Over on the next page, there's a heading that says kidney index locations. You will locate the kidney codes in your CPT manual index under kidney. Okay, makes sense. They're subtermed primarily by category. So again, insertion, excision, repair. Another method that you can use to find kidney codes is to reference the medical term for the procedure. So again, we can go about getting our answers in CPT a couple of different ways. Okay, and you can still get the same answer. So you could go to kidney, you can go to nephrostomy, okay, or nephrotomy, and find the same codes. Okay. And they talk about that there down at the bottom. Ureter is next. Again, make sure that the ureters, you're watching your spelling there, ureters and urethra. The ureters are the tubes, okay, from the kidneys that go down to the bladder. So we talk about incisions, excisions, introductions, repairs. Again, laparoscopy, and then endoscopy as well. We really need to use those skills from MedTerm, okay, for those terms and where to start. The bladder is talked about next as you move through the chapter. Again, this chapter isn't that much in depth. I do want to look on page 516 under excision in your textbook. There's a paragraph called pelvic exenteration. And beside this, I have written TPE, total pelvic exenteration. That's what it's called. You hear TPE used a lot. Total pelvic exenteration or pelvic exenteration is 51597. It's the removal of the pelvic organs, the adjacent structures, and this is because of malignancy. Okay, this is why we do this. So it talks about TPE there, and again, it is a very important and more common kind of procedure. Urodynamics is good. Reading that paragraph about urodynamics, the repair and the laparoscopy is very interesting. Stress incontinence is talked about there. Bladder slings, urethropexy, vesico-urethropexy, fixing that in place is what they talk about with that. Transurethral surgery is talked about on the next page. Remember, transurethral can be across or through, okay, the urethra. So that talks about that. We often think about prostate type procedures with that. And then they get into the urethra, repair, manipulation of, and then they get to male genital. Okay, so half of the chapter 20 is just urinary system, very short and sweet. Same with male genital, pretty short and sweet. They go through the format. You can read about that. Basically, most of our popular codes that come from this area are going to be codes for things like circumcisions, repairs, and then also, let me see here. If you turn to the vas deferens, incision, excision, introduction, and repairs, so things like vasectomies, okay, are talked about here, and the reversal of the vasectomies as well, with the vas deferens there. The prostate, again, is going to be pretty important. Again, anytime we skip through something in a chapter, we hit it again in advanced coding. Don't worry that we skip around too much. And again, a lot of this is on you for reading. Okay, I can kind of direct you here to some of the highlights. There are a couple pretty cool videos here. On page 532 in your textbook, there's a little kind of finger pointer. It says, check this out. That's really neat. If you want to read about that, that's really cool, using the Da Vinci prostatectomy system. Brachytherapy is talked about on the next page, and I have a few notes here. This is implanting seeds for things like prostate cancer, but it's not only in that area. But they do talk about, approximately even up to 100 seeds being placed for that, low dose method for cancer. And they have cancer treatment brachytherapy. There's a little picture of the seeds. You can't see them very well down there. But there is a video, and that's this next video that I have on YouTube for you to watch. And that's, again, 4 minutes. I think it's like 4:11 or 4:12. Again, not very long, but really interesting to see how they do that. It's a very intense therapy, and it's right there at the source. Okay? So the rest of our healthy tissue and healthy body can be left alone. Okay, which is why it's so advantageous right now. I think it's pretty popular. And then that's the end of chapter 20. So check out your homework assignments, your discussions that are out there, and let me know if you have any questions.